Today we are going to revisit one of my favorite roads on the 2025 Nova Scotia Four Corners trip. That is riding on routes 332 and 331 along the Le Havre River heading from Halifax to Digby. The road was just twisty enough to make it fun, and it is lined with beautiful homes and churches as well as views of the Le Havre River. As we have discussed before, your perspective changes as we age. At least it sure has for me. I no longer want to push myself to the limits of human endurance or prove that I can get by eating crappy gas station food for days on end. Of course, there will always be struggle associated with motorcycle travel, like overcoming a windstorm, staying hydrated in the heat, and just sitting in the saddle for hours at a time. But now that I am a senior citizen, travel is mostly about finding joy and beauty in both the big and the small. Preparing for a long trip and throwing my leg over a motorcycle saddle involves both practical and emotional aspects, and many times they blend into each other. In this video, we are going to talk about some of those things I have learned or experienced over the years of motorcycle travel. As always, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. There is a little bit of a paradox with getting older. Somewhere around 50, you start to think more about your mortality, and there is this overwhelming feeling that your time to do things has run out. If you want to do those things you've always wanted to do, well, you need to do them now. Your mortality smacks you right in the face. Then somewhere around 60 years of age, you start to give in, to slow down. You realize that there will never be enough time, and rushing around and trying to fit everything in to your family and life commitments is a fool's errand that leads to frustration and exhaustion. The wise and elderly slows down. At least that is the way it has worked for me. No longer do I need to fit 5 things into my day. 1 is more than enough. I give my full attention to whatever I am doing rather than what I have to do next. When I ride, and nothing more. I let myself become immersed in the experience. It is a mindset change that has made all the difference. As you can imagine, having this YouTube channel puts my face out there, and everyone who watches thinks they know me. I have always tried to be generous with my time when people ask to meet up along the way, but I always draw the line with allowing someone I don't know to join for the entire trip. It is just too risky. I don't mean risky in the sense of personal safety. More so, I'm referring to committing to someone with different riding and travel styles. It is tough enough, even with friends, to coordinate waking times, stopping times, travel distances, and even restaurant choices. Each of these things is small, but it all adds up, and it can be, well, over the course of a long trip, very contentious. You need to make sure that you are compatible with the people you are traveling with. And I do that by having a plan, just making sure that everybody is on the same page before we leave. I do this for daily mileage, hotel stays, and things we want to see along the way. It just makes everything much simpler, and it reduces conflict. As an older guy, I have no tolerance for drama and choose to ride with others who have the same aversion. If you don't have friends that you can travel with like that, then maybe you should be going solo. While going it alone eliminates drama and the need to coordinate schedules or personal preferences, it does come with other things to consider. My wife likes it better when I travel with someone because if something does go wrong, I will have help, and let's be honest, so that if I am injured or worse, there will be someone to call and let her know. In many years of taking long motorcycle trips, this has only happened once, and that was while I was riding off-road, and of course, that was also at the time my phone quit working. I mean, go figure. Looking back, my solo road trips have been remarkably free of major incidents. One of the reasons for this is that I create a plan, as I mentioned before, and pretty much stick to it. If there is something cool to see, I will stop and make a side trip, but I pre-plan my start and end locations as well as my hotels. Again, it just makes everything much easier. There's less stuff to worry about out there on the road, and my wife always knows exactly where I will be. Of course, it is great to have someone to share the adventure with, but traveling alone is much more contemplative and often emotional, at least for me. However, you do need to be comfortable with your own thoughts. Many find this to be the hardest part of solo adventures. Since I mentioned planning, I guess it's time to discuss this somewhat controversial topic. Yes, whenever I mention planning, I get the standard responses about making the trip less of an adventure and it all being about the journey, not the destination. And yes, right about now, my eyes are rolling back in my head. Whatever floats your boat, but planning is just another aspect of enjoying the ride, and yes, it can increase your safety as well, at least if you are smart about it. As a young guy, when I was limited by vacation time, I would ride 500 miles or more every day. But now that I am older and a bit smarter, I just don't want to push myself to the point of exhaustion day after day. That increases my risk, which is not something I want to do as a guy in my 60s. I want to continue riding for as long as I can, and slowing down is part of ensuring that I am able to do that. Nowadays, each segment of my trip is shorter, generally between 200 and 300 miles, giving myself enough time to stop and see something interesting or have a great lunch. It increases my safety and enjoyment. As I mentioned, if you are traveling with a time limit, needing to get back to work, I get it. I have been there too. But if you are retired, now is the time to slow down and smell the coffee. Planning is not inherently good or bad, it is just a tool that does exactly what you tell it to do. For me, planning is also part of staying healthy. If I push myself to exhaustion, then I lower my immune response and increase my chances of getting sick. I did have this happen during our trip to Alaska in 2017, but fortunately, that is the only time. I will not go over the importance of hydration here. I have done that many times. Just know it is very important. Some love to give me shit about what I eat while traveling, but the truth is that I always lose a few pounds while on the road. Just because I take pictures of a huge plate of food does not mean that I eat it all. In fact, I very rarely finish a meal. The portions are usually just way too big. I also typically only have 2 meals per day. I do allow myself to enjoy my trips and give myself permission to select foods I normally stay away from when I'm at home. For me, part of the fun of travel is to find local diners and restaurants, and they don't typically have health food at these establishments. So it's okay to enjoy life every once in a while. Again, as an older rider, safety is something you need to think about. With good preparation, and yes, with planning and execution, chances are that you will never need any of these precautions, but it is still a good idea to make sure that you are covered in the case something unforeseen happens. While I have been fortunate enough to never need it, I always make sure that I carry my InReach device when traveling solo. I also spring for the extra $30 per year and purchase the emergency coverage that is available through Garmin. If I have to hit that SOS button, I want to make sure that I'm not going to leave with a huge bill. And speaking of huge bills, when riding in Canada or other foreign countries, I also purchase an extra medical insurance policy. Check your insurance and make sure it covers emergency care, hospitalization, and repatriation. If, like me, you're on Medicare, well, your emergency coverage is limited. So I think it's a good idea to get something a little extra just to make sure. I have used in the past a product from GeoBlue. Cost me about $400 when I went up to Alaska for $1 million worth of coverage. I did an entire video on the topic of bike and personal safety, so I'm going to direct you to that if you want more details. For me, staying safe on the road comes down to two things. Don't leave stuff on your bike, and don't go in places where you're likely to have trouble. These are the same rules that I follow at home. The only thing out of the ordinary that I do is cover my bike every night. Out of sight, out of mind. It just makes it a little more of a hassle for someone walking by, and it keeps people from sitting on your bike. And yes, I have had that happen, but a dad putting his kid on a bike for a picture is not really the end of the world. Equipment is one of those topics that I often get yelled at for. See, I prefer to buy quality equipment, and it is often expensive, but I want a jacket and pants that I can rely on, and I know that is going to keep me warm and dry when needed. Yes, I want something to keep me from being severely injured in the event of a crash, but mostly my gear needs to do all of that while allowing me to be comfortable in all kinds of situations that I might encounter. Personally, I say buy the best gear that you can afford, and remember that layering is the key to riding in all kinds of situations. For me, over the course of my riding career, that has been Climb and now AEROSTICH products. Bike maintenance is another one of those things I plan for. I figure out where I'm going to be when my bike is scheduled for service, and I make sure to plan a down day. No matter if I'm going to take the bike into the dealer or do the work myself, I make sure to select a hotel near the shop or maybe a Walmart to buy whatever I need. Of course, if I'm going to perform the service myself, I have to make sure that I carry the tools required. My planning also includes tire changes. I am not one to push my tires until they are almost bald. I would rather know I was traveling on a good set of rubber. I am not at all concerned that I am not getting my money's worth. If I am near home, I am more likely to run the tire down to the wear bars, but on the road, I am much more conservative. For me, having good rubber is part of the safety stuff I talked about earlier. Now that we have got all of that practical stuff out of the way, let's talk about some emotional concerns. And I know, aren't I a tough biker? What the hell am I going to be doing talking about emotional concerns? Well, I'm really not that tough, and traveling by motorcycle can indeed raise certain feelings, both of elation and melancholy. Especially when traveling solo, at least for me, these emotions can be very powerful. Riding through a beautiful landscape can at the same time make you feel part of something larger than you can imagine, and also small and insignificant. There are times when these feelings are overpowering, connecting me to something I can't comprehend. It is at these times when I feel closer to the source of everything. Yet there are other times when I'm tired and lonely, wondering why I am out there. One of these times was when I was on the Lewis and Clark Highway when an 18-wheeler almost jackknifed in front of me, and within a few miles I passed the location where another rider lost his life just the day before. I pushed on, but I admit it shook me. There are still other times when riding is just drudgery. When it is raining and cold and there is nowhere to hide or to get warm, there is no other choice than to keep going. These are the days when you ask, why? Why am I doing this? But of course, the answer is that you do it to overcome these times and to experience the beauty and wonder you know is just around the corner. As I mentioned earlier, one of the hardest things about traveling alone is being at peace with your own thoughts. Many don't like this or find it difficult, especially at the end of a long day, sitting in a hotel room or at camp. Solo travel is not only about riding alone, but it's also about eating and relaxing with only the company in your head. To combat these feelings, I will bring a good book or listen to an audio recording or podcast. I might also write in a journal each day, but the truth is that I always have been comfortable with the guy in my head. I really enjoy being alone. I think this is essential when taking a long motorcycle trip You have to plan days off. This is when you don't get on the bike, preferably not even to get food. I try to find hotels that have restaurants within walking distance. All I want to do on these days is rest, wash clothes, and maybe do bike maintenance if needed. These are meant to be chill days, a time to recharge, so that when I do climb back on the bike the next day, I feel ready to go. Down days make sure I don't get burned out because yes, even riding a motorcycle can get old after 30 or 60 days. Even though there can be tough times and lonely times, completing a motorcycle tour gives me a sense of accomplishment. I started by researching and planning, selecting the roads I wanted to ride, the places and things I wanted to see. Each segment of the trip is a mini goal with a starting location, ending location, and daily mileage. Every day, I get a small sense of accomplishment, and together, 5, 7, 14, 30, or 60 days add up to a major challenge that has been overcome. There is a point on every trip when you are going to hit the wall, when you are ready to head back to the barn. I have tried planning things at the end of a trip to maintain my enthusiasm. I have tried finishing the trip on the highways and on the back roads. None of it makes any real difference. There is just a point when you know it is time to go home, and that's all you can think about. These are generally the times on every trip when I get frustrated. Traffic gets in the way, construction slows me down, or things start to break. When I'm ready to go home, it's hard to keep these things in perspective, and the last things I want to do is finish a great trip on a bad note. But it has happened. In 2022, I was on the road for 65 days. Most of the trip was fantastic, but my BMW had broken down in Zion National Park, and during the final day of the trip, the suspension went out on my bush deck trailer. Along with that, there was construction all the way from Scranton, Pennsylvania to Hartford, Connecticut. It was a rough day, and I just wanted to be home. Ultimately, I did make it home. I got a hug from my wife, smoked a cigar, had a beer, and everything was okay. Within a couple of days, I was ready to go again. Ride safe, and of course, keep squeezing that lemon.